Welcome to the Canadian International Meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Massey and I am an alcoholic.
My name is Kathleen and I am an alcoholic, both serving as your secretaries today. Please join me for a moment's silence to remember the still suffering alcoholic both inside and outside the meeting.
Robin is going to read the preamble for us.
Thanks, Mossy. Thanks, Kathleen. Hi, everyone. Robin, alcoholic. Good to be sober. Good to be in a meeting. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. AA has no dues or fees. It is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Thank you, Robin. A warm welcome goes out to any newcomers or anyone returning to Alcoholics Anonymous.
The chat is now disabled until the end of the meeting, except for the meeting hosts. If you feel that meeting security is at risk at any time during the meeting, please private message one of the co-hosts so they can check it out.
And that's it, folks. Saturday evening is our old-timer series. And Olaf is coming to share with us from Toronto today. So take it away there, Olaf. You have 40, 45 minutes, 50 minutes. We're not going to stop you. You just do your thing. All right. And thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so very much, Mossy. Hi, everybody. My name's Olaf. I'm an alcoholic. Member of the Had Enough Yet Big Book discussion group here in Toronto. My sobriety date is July 17th, 1993. And that's really big news for me. They said them, the sober people who were at the second meeting that I ever went to said, chances are you're not going to make it. And that scared me to death because on my last time out was a suicide attempt. I never want to put myself in a position like that again. I was at a meeting yesterday and there was a topic called about trust. And I trust myself today, but I don't trust myself when I drink alcohol. The last time I got in the ring with alcohol, it nearly beat me to death. I grew up in Toronto. I have two parents and a younger brother. He seemed to get by pretty well. He did as he was told. He didn't talk back very much. And he did it right the first time. Which leads me to tell you the 3 rules in my house was don't talk back, do as you're told, do it right or not at all, but you're doing it. And if I stepped outside of that very narrow margin, there was a beating to be had. And not too long ago, I remember sitting down with my brother and my dad. And my brother said, why couldn't you just do as you were told? I don't know. There's a difference between not listening and not paying attention. I think I've got a bad case of it. And I try and pay more attention now. My wife will attest to that. So pretty normal upbringing within those 3 rules. Failed grade 7. Didn't really much like school. I like art class. I didn't like school much. But failed grade 7, so I was in the same grade as my brother. That was humiliating. Mom and dad split up when I was 15, and that was devastating. I found out not long after that the dad that I grew up with wasn't my real father, that my real father had died when I was 7, and I never did get a chance to meet him, and he never got a chance to see me. Years later, I met my 2 half-sisters and a best friend and some other friends of his, which put me at ease. I highly respect my dad today that I grew up with. He took me on when I was 3 months. What guy does that? You know, in general, what in normal circumstances, guys don't usually take on children that don't belong to them. Anyways, that's got very little to do with much. It was a traumatic time in my life, though. There was no drinking in my house. Nobody drank alcohol. Only occasionally on special occasions. They had alcohol under the sink next to the cleaning supplies. I could never understand that. But there was no drinking or anything like that going on at home for the most part. I did get invited out one day when I was 13. I got invited out by the in crowd. You know, the crowd that hangs out in the back of the portable at the schoolyard? They smoke and they were older. They invited me over to somebody's home where we were going to hang out. And I agreed. I went. I was the youngest of the bunch. And they passed around this big bottle of gin. And somebody poured me a big glass of it and said, "Here, down it." So I did. It was the worst tasting stuff I've ever had in my life. But because they were doing it, I did it. And they noticed that my glass was empty and I was coughing a lot. And they proceeded to fill it up again. And so they did. And I looked around and they were filling up their glasses. And of course, I had to do what they were doing. And so I just followed suit. And a little while later, I needed to go use the restroom. And I realized I couldn't get up. My legs were frozen. It seemed like they were numb. I couldn't feel anything. And I was scared for a moment. And somebody says, "What's the matter?" I said, I can't get up. And they all started laughing. And right there, I got what I was looking for. I got their approval. And I thought they were laughing. Well, might as well make a joke of it. And then I finally did get up and I fell down and they were laughing some more. And I made it up to the bathroom and somebody said, "Well, we're all going to the mall right now. We're going to take a walk over to the mall to McDonald's and we're going to have lunch." Well, I didn't have any money, but I didn't really want to I didn't feel like eating any either. So I staggered my way to the mall through the snow. And by the time I got to the mall, I was freezing cold, ice cold. My clothes were soaking wet and I felt terrible. I felt really terrible. And as soon as that smell of McDonald's came into my nose, my mouth started watering and I got really dizzy. My stomach started to hurt. And all of a sudden, yep, you guessed it, all over McDonald's. I got sick. I puked all over the floor, all over the police car, inside the back of the police car, at the police station, and in the hospital. There's a whole lot of information and you can fill in the blanks. And I swore I would never do that again as long as I lived. And the nurse came to me with a can of ginger ale and a hot blanket and said, "Sonny, we're going to pump your stomach. I feel real sorry for you because that's going to be the most painful thing you've ever had since you've been born." And I was terrified. Luckily, they didn't do that. And a while later, either that day or the next, Dad came to pick me up and said, "Your mom's really upset." And so I promised I'd never do it again. And I didn't. I didn't drink again for a couple of years. And I still haven't had another drink of gin ever. It reminds me of the time when I left grade school and I went to the store and I stole a big box of those chocolate covered marshmallow cookies. I'm sure you've had those. I have. I ate the whole box and I've never ever had another one since because I got sick at the back of the store where I stole them from, all the way home and at home. And I've never had another one of those. I don't learn from my mistakes. Does anybody here learn from their mistakes? No. We make them again and again and again, right? I learn from the consequences of my mistakes. The greater the consequence, the greater the lesson, the chances are I won't repeat that exercise. So that's what happened there. And so moving right along, I got me a new girlfriend when I was about 19, 20 years old. And this be my third girlfriend ever. And she was really, really nice. She was really sweet. And I was bragging on her to my mother. My mom lived in New Orleans in the United States. And Mom said, well, she sounds like a nice girl. It's summertime. Why don't you come down and visit us? And we'll meet her. And what I heard was, we'll approve if you do that. And so I said, okay, let's do it. And I brought my girl. Oh, by the way, I just met her at work. And we got together for the weekend, and 2 weeks later she moved in. And so a week after that, we drove to New Orleans, which is about 24 hours drive. And we got there, and about 3 days later into our visit, Mom agreed. She said, Olaf, you made a really, really, really wise choice. She is a nice girl. Have you ever thought of getting married? I said, Mom, are you kidding me? I'm 20. No, I've never ever thought of getting married. She says, she's such a nice girl. I'll tell you what, if you marry her, if you agree to marry her, I'll set it all up, she says. We'll buy the rings for you at the mall. We'll go to the mall and buy rings for you both. And she can wear something of mine, and you can wear something from Harold. And you guys will be married, and you'll live happy, and then you'll have children, and you'll be married, and you'll have happily ever after. And what I heard was, one more time, I approve if you do this. And I'll do this for you so that she'll get her own way. Mom always wanted her own way. And so I went along with it. And it was very uneventful. And when we finally got home, I said to my brother, I got to visit with my dad and my brother. And I told them, I said, look at this, I'm married. Look, guys, I'm married. And they said, to who? I said, to Rosie. She said, my brother said, Olaf, you just met her. Come on, are you serious? You're married? I said, yeah, I'm married. Look at my ring. And they look at me, they look at each other, they look at me and said, what were you thinking? And it seemed like a good idea at the time. We did end up having 2 children, and I'll tell you a bit more about them shortly. And so we lived happily ever after for about a year. And my daughter was born, and I got a new job and a new obsession. Her, somebody else. And so, yep, that destroyed my marriage. That destroyed the happily ever after. And I chased her to live happily ever after. Her being the new girlfriend, the adulteress. And she laughs when I call her that. And so, home wrecker, she calls herself a home wrecker. And so I didn't think of anything. I thought nothing of it at all at the time. Today, it would be the most devastating thing I could ever do. But at the time, I thought nothing of it. I had no respect for marriage. I had no respect for people. I didn't have any respect for myself. If it looked like fun, I'm in. And I chased fun. I chased a good time. I chased alcohol after that. I stayed good and drunk for the whole time her and I were together. We were together for about 5.5 years. Oh, I need to tell you, experimenting with alcohol. I'm sure there's nobody here that's experimented. You either drink or you don't. But when I was younger, I experimented at high school. My brother and I got together and drank some swamp water. That's where you take whatever's under the sink and you fill up a big container and suck it back before school. Well, you guessed it, all over the kid in front of me, all over the kid next to me, and on the other side, I got sick everywhere. I thought this drinking takes an awful lot of effort. If you're going to get sick that often, what's the point? But I like the way it made me feel. It let me be out of control and out of my mind the way I always wanted to be. And so staying drunk for that next 5.5 years while her and I were together seemed like the only way that I could escape feeling the guilt and the remorse that I had over leaving my wife and children. And so the day, I remember it was July 16th, 1993. I had made a picture for a race car driver, and I painted a picture of a race car driver, and I gave it to his father, who promised me tickets to the front row and to the pits of the racetrack, and it would have been a great day. But he fell through, and it didn't happen. So I started the Friday off with a big fat resentment. I was angrier than hell. I was hot as hell. And my girlfriend and I, we agreed to go up north to to our neighbor's cottage, who was my only friend left. I didn't have any friends at that time except for him. He tolerated me. By the way, he was probably old enough to be my dad. And so we went up to his cottage and we drank. And of course, I have a sleeping disorder. When I drink, I pass out everywhere and anywhere. I have missed so many rock concerts. I was there, but I missed the whole concert. I've missed rock concerts, dinners. I end up in the bathroom, falling asleep on the toilet. I end up in a snowbank in the bus shelter, on the subway, in the back of cars, and end up with no money after drinking, hitchhike home, fall asleep, and they'd throw me out. And it was really a lot of work to stay drunk. It was a real hard time. And so just some of the chaos that I remember. And so we were up north at my neighbor's cottage, and it was time to have lunch. And she said, well, why don't we go to the grocery store to buy some food to contribute to the barbecue? And I didn't really want to go because it took time away from drinking. And we argued about it, and I finally went. And we're fighting. We're fighting in the car, arguing in the car. I want to drive. No, you can't drive. You're too drunk, but I want to drive. So we were arguing about that. She finally got fed up, stopped the car, got out of the car, slammed the door, told me to do something that's humanly impossible, and she left. Now, where we were situated was on this deserted road. On either side of the road, there was cornfield, and you couldn't see over the cornfields. It was so high, and there was absolutely nowhere to go. The end of the road was way back there, would have taken maybe an hour to get to, and our friend's neighbor's cottage was up ahead, a long walk. Anyways, I started driving back to the cottage, and I had a moment of clarity. And I thought to myself, I can't leave her there. What if something happens? I couldn't live with myself. So I turned the car around to find her, and she was gone. Poof, invisible. Just gone. I couldn't believe it. And so I stopped the car, and right before my eyes, my whole life just kind of went like this. There's no point. There's no point in living. Nobody wants you. You have no friends. You have no family. They didn't want nothing to do with me. You couldn't hire me. I couldn't keep a commitment. I couldn't do my job right anyways, nor do I always show up on time. I was so undependable. I was a liar. I would lie when the truth would suffice. I just desperately wanted you to like me, but nobody did because my behavior was just so beyond acceptable. And I show up drunk most of the time. And I'd steal from you, talk bad about you behind your back, and didn't care whether you knew it or not. And yeah, I'm embarrassed to tell you all of that, but that's the way I used to be. And so my whole life went before my eyes, and I said, why live? You're worth nothing. You are nothing. You're done. And I put my foot on the gas, and I hit the floor, and I went. And I drove as fast as that little car would take me to the main road. And I turned, and I was looking for a truck to smash into. I was just flooring it. I floored it all the way. It was about an hour away from home. I managed to make it home. I did not find a truck to smash into. I went into the parking lot where I lived, into the house. I sat down on the couch at home and opened up a beer and passed out, thankfully. And God brought me home safely. And so I got home, and the phone rang. It was one of my drinking buddies saying, come on, there's a party over here. Bring your booze. Come with some drugs and bring some booze with you to the party. And I just hung up on him. I was so devastated, embarrassed about what just happened, and terrified. because I knew for sure this time she meant business. She told me these things. We split up so many times before. We argued and fought so many times before, but this time was the end. And I believed her. So I got back in the car, decided I'm going to go back up there and talk to her and kiss her and make up, make it up and try and get her to forgive me. And on my way, I stopped at the street light and Bill's car was in the driveway. Bill was a guy I used to work with for about a year. We were sign painters at a great big amusement park, and we would work together on the off season in the wintertime. And he was the happiest guy I ever met. He didn't drink. He'd been sober for about a year. He would irritate me to no end a lot, especially on Monday mornings. He'd come up to me with the biggest smile, smelling fresh and clean. He'd slap me on the shoulder and say, "Good morning, Olaf. How was your weekend?" And I'd swear at him because nobody should be that friggin' happy. Like, come on, really? What are you taking? And he wasn't taking anything. He was sober. And I'd walk away from him and swear at him. And he'd say, "You know, Olaf, what causes a problem is a problem." That went over my head. I said, "That be you? You're my problem? I don't want to talk to you." And he'd say to me, "All I asked you was, how was your weekend? I was just being nice to you." I said, "Don't want to hear about it. It was a wreck, okay? If that's what you want to know, it was a wreck." Oh, by the way, she worked with us, my girlfriend. The three of us worked together. So then he would also say, "Hey, Olaf, have you had enough yet?" He would ask me that. I say, "Yeah, I've had enough of you." Again, I didn't know what he was talking about. And so I'd go off into the corner and work on my project, and he'd go off into the corner and work on his with her. The two of them worked together. And she would proceed to tell him about the weekend. And I knew it. They were talking about me for sure. I knew it. And then he knew more about me than I remember. Because of course I slept through most of the weekend in between drunks. Did you ever sleep between drunks and start drinking again like you didn't fall asleep before? Right. I did that often. And so just wake up, start drinking, fall asleep, wake up, continue drinking until it was gone. And yeah, so he would say those things to me on Monday mornings. But this day, his car was parked in his driveway. I seen it and I pulled into his driveway. I knew there was an answer there. There was hope. I needed help. I couldn't live the way I was living. I pulled into his driveway and I was pounding on the door, and he came to the door and he was really shocked to see me. He says, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Bill, I need your help." And I'm in tears crying. I said, "Bill, I need your help. Please help me. Please help me. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Today I tried to end my life. I was in my car looking for a truck to smash into. You got to help me. I never want to drink again. All I know about you is you're happy and you don't drink, and I don't know how to do that. Please help me. I'm afraid." And he looked at me and he changed his tone. He changed the look on his face, changed. Everything about him changed. He said, "Really? You come to my house looking for help?" I said, "Yes, you got to help me. You got to help me." He says, "Let me ask you a question. What are you willing to do to get sober and to get happy?" I said, "Anything, anything, anything." He says, "Oh, good. I'm glad you said that." He invited me into his home. And so before I went in, I said, "I want to show you something. Come here." So I brought him out to my car, and I had a box of beer in the back seat, and I broke all the bottles in the garbage. I made sure they all broke. I had a bag of pot in my pocket, and I emptied that and let the wind blow that away. I've never had a drink or a drug since, not one. I said, "I'm done. I never want to do this ever again, ever." He said, "Okay, well, we do this thing one day at a time." And I said, "Okay, sure." He invited me into his home and he proceeded to tell me about the disease of alcoholism. That I take a drink of alcohol, it goes into my body, it does something on the inside of me that tells my mind I need to have another one. Just another one. And I do. And then it happens again, and it continues to happen. And then I can't stop. I just can't stop. I like 7-Up. I like chocolate ice cream, but I don't buy 10 containers of chocolate ice cream and sit there and eat them till they're gone. I don't do that. I don't buy cases of 7-Up and drink it until it's gone. I don't do that either. The obsession of the mind is where it all starts. It's a thinking problem. You know, there's slogans in AA. They think, think, think. That's it. Just 3. That's it. 3 things. And after that, you're obsessing. The first thing, how was it before you stopped drinking alcohol? It was a mess. Well, think about it. How was it working for you? It wasn't. How's it working for you now? It's not. Think about how it could work for you if you tried doing it our way. And I thought, I can do that. I'm willing to do that. I said to Bill, I said, okay, so I got an obsession to alcohol and an allergy of the body once I start drinking. What do I do to stop? He says, you don't pick up. Don't drink it. Leave it alone. Throw it away. Don't go near places where they drink. Stay away from people that drink. Change your playgrounds. Change your playmates. And call me if you are not sure. I said, okay, I can do that. He said, we're going to go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I said, oh, sure. I'm not doing nothing anyways. Okay, I can do that. So that night I went with him to the meeting, and it was a huge meeting. There was so many people in an auditorium listening to somebody from Scotland. He had a really thick accent. It was hard to understand. And he proceeded to talk about the things he did when he was drinking. He moved a lot. He moved from many different neighborhoods. I did the same thing. I moved them. I may as well have stayed packed. I moved so much. And then he moved from Scotland to Canada. And the same people, same friends, same bars, same drunken stories followed him to Canada. And that happened to me too. Although I stayed in Ontario, I didn't move around that much. But everywhere I went, I took myself with me and my problems. And so that's the story this guy told. At the end of the meeting, we went back to the car. Bill and I drove together. And I asked Bill, I said, is that it? You mean to tell me I go to meetings like this and I'm going to get happy like you? That's it? Like television style? Sit and listen? He says, oh, no. That's just one type of a meeting. There's another kind of meeting. I said, I hope so, because normally I fall asleep. I don't go to movies. I'm not going to sit there. I cannot believe sitting in a meeting, listening to someone tell their story is going to keep me sober. He said, don't worry about it. Tomorrow we're going to a different one. And we did. It was 45 minutes away, for God's sakes. 45. I said, why is it so far? He says, how far would you go to get drunk? I said, it doesn't matter. He says, well, then stop your complaining. So off we went, and it was a men's big book discussion meeting. And here were a bunch of old guys. Some guys were 40. Some of them were easily 70. Like, these guys were old. And I was 29. And probably the youngest guy in the room, I'm sure of it. And they were happy, most of them, all but two real miserable guys. And they were happy to see me. They were so happy to see me. They wanted me to come back. They were shaking my hand. I thought, did you guys expect me? I told Bill, I said, did you tell them I was coming? And he says, no, that's how we treat newcomers. We're glad they're there and we want them to come back. I said, okay. I seen it happen to another guy afterwards, so I understood a little better then. And they proceeded to pass around this big fat blue book with no pictures and words that were real little. And they passed it around and everybody signed their name in the front cover of the book. They signed their name and their phone number. And at the end of the meeting, they gave me the book. And they said, if you feel like drinking, call one of the numbers in this book. And they gave me the book. And guess how many numbers I called? 0. You know why? Because the phone's too heavy. How arrogant. Here, kid, call me if you're feeling squirrely. Give me a call. Like hell, I'm going to call. The phone's too heavy. I dare not. I double dare not just flippantly give my phone number away to some newcomer and expect them to call me. Not happening. That's my job. That's my job to pick up my phone that I'm good and used to using. And I call that new guy and make it easy for him to come back. That's my standing assignment my sponsor gave me day one. He says, you call that new guy when you see him, call him twice a day to make him feel welcome and meet him at the meeting, take him out for coffee and make him feel welcome. My first assignment is to love him and then later to help him with the steps. Anyways, back on track here. They gave me a book and I didn't call anybody. So I call Bill all the time because we got that job back together and we're working together now. And sobriety is fantastic. Oh, keep coming back. First things first, don't drink, go to meetings every single day. We're going to meetings every day. I said, Bill, can I take a day off? He says, no. Did you ever take a day off of drinking? I said, only when I was broke and sick. He says, right. There's no excuse to miss a meeting. Besides, if you miss a meeting, you don't know what you're going to miss. I said, oh, and I had that fear of missing out. So I did. I went to meetings all the time. He says, well, I asked him, I said, how long do I have to go? He says, until you want to. I said, when am I going to know? He says, you'll know. So what do I have to do? He says, let go. I don't understand. He said, good. That's your problem. You have this need to know, this need to understand everything, this need to figure it out, always needing to know, always having to find out, always getting in people's face, trying to figure it out all the time. Give it up. Stop it. Because I've always asked him, why? That's a management question. He said, stop asking why. You are not permitted to ask why. I said, why? He said, because it's a management question. Step 1, section B says you're not in management. So stop asking. Drives my wife crazy. She'll say, why did that? I didn't ask. She said, why not? It's a management question. I just don't. It's just one of the things I don't ever do anymore. When it's time to know, I will know with no effort on my part. And it's given me a lot of peace. I got other things to do anyways than to try and figure things out. It's one of the ways I played God. And so these meetings, one day at a time, first things first, And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. 3 months, I get my 3-month coin. And 3 days later, I wake up that morning and sobriety sucks. Oh, I hate this. I can't stand the way I'm feeling. I hate my life. She came back. I got hired back at that job with Bill. He's talking to me about AA, listening to speaker tapes all day at work, going to meetings every day, all the time. My girlfriend's daughter moved in. She was 12 and she didn't like me at all, and I didn't like her at all. The dog was either in heat or there was something wrong with it because it wouldn't stop barking. The boss was getting on my nerves, wanting me to spend time at work longer than I wanted to. And life just completely sucked. I hate this. And Bill, who was now my sponsor, he said, Olaf, I'm really tired of listening to you. How about you go to the meeting tonight and tell them about it? I said, fine. So we get to the meeting, 45 minutes later, we go around the room. This is how this meeting works, okay? Introduce yourself and tell us briefly, how was your week really? And if there's a problem, we'll find the answer in the book. If we can't find the answer in the book, it's not a problem and you don't have to worry about it and stop whining. That's the kind of mentality this group ran on. And it worked quite well for everybody. Most people call that crosstalk, but we called it saving your butt. So it finally got to my turn. Olaf, how was your week really? And I told them, and they were laughing and hitting the table, belly laughs. They thought it was the funniest thing. And I didn't. I was steaming. I was just so furious. I wanted to kill somebody. And my grand sponsor, who sponsored half the meeting, he crossed his arms and said, hey, What step are you on? And my heart dropped and the room went dead quiet. I said, I don't know. I'm on step 1. He says, no, you're not. That brought you here. By the sounds of it, you're having a hell of a time managing your own life. Are you done? I said, I'm done. I don't know what to do. He said, look at the wall. The steps were written really big on a poster on the wall. He said, you've taken the first step. How long you been sober? I said, 3 months and 3 days. And I pulled out my 3-month coin. He said, put that away. That ain't going to get you sober. That's crap. They didn't believe in chips. And so he said, take a look at that second step. You've taken that too. I said, what? You've taken the second step. You're here. It's Friday. Alcoholics that drink alcohol don't go to AA meetings on Fridays. You come here with hope that maybe, just maybe, you'll get something or you'll hear something that you can take home and do and come back and tell us about it. You believe AA can help you. And now we're having this dialogue, just him and I, but there's 40 other guys in the meeting and everybody's dead quiet. And I said, huh, really? He said, yeah, you've taken the second step. You believe. That's all that's required is believe. And it's making sense, sort of. I said, oh, and I pulled it out. I pulled out my list. I said, I got my list. He said, what list? I said, you missed the meeting. Last week we did a step 2 meeting and I was told to make a list. He said, tell us about your list, Olaf. And most of the guys were there. They know about the list, but now he put me on the hot seat. It's my turn. I said, well, Donnie, who's sober longer than God, he was sober the longest in the meeting. He proceeded to tell the group about God as he understands him. See, last week we were having a step 2 meeting and we were all going to talk about God as we understood him. And my first question was, why on earth do they always add as we understood, as we understood, as we understood? Everywhere in our literature that you see God, it's followed by as you understand God, as you understand him. I said, I don't understand him. I grew up in a home where God was not discussed, ever. Now, we watched the movies at Christmas and Easter, and they were nice movies. They had to be true because they play them every year, and they were magic. They were fabulous. They're gorgeous. They're amazing movies. God is all-powerful and he's love. That's what it said in the movies. That's all I knew about God. Nothing more. I didn't go to God's school. I didn't go to church. Nothing. But now we're having a step 2 meeting and I get to hear what everybody's got to say about their God as they understand him. I mean, I can't wait for that meeting. I couldn't wait for it. And it finally got around to Don, the old guy. It got to his turn. And here's what he said. You ready? Water is for drinking. Shoes are for walking. Cigarettes are for smoking. And God is for giving. Now tell me something didn't just happen on the inside of you. That's what happened to me. And I heard me say, wow, are you kidding me? For giving and forgiving. Double meaning there. And everybody's looking at me. I don't care. I'm a little bit excitable, right? A whole lot. And I said, I never heard that before. He says, yeah, now you go home and make a list of the God that you understand, the God that you want to have. And he said, now turn to page 12, and everybody gets their book. Turn to page 12 in the big book where it says, why don't you choose your own conception of God? Carte blanche, permission to choose one. Pick them. Pick a God, any color, any size, any shape, any age, any sex, doesn't matter. What attributes would you like God to have? If you were to pick a God, what would you like to have? So my list is a little old. I need a God that's eager to forgive me. Not just a forgiving God, but an eager to forgive God. He said on a piece of paper, God is not. Draw a line down the middle and start with God is. And everything you grew up hearing about God, put it down here. Because if that worked, you wouldn't be here, right? We're going to lay this God aside. The God is not. We're going to lay it aside until we get through the good list. I need an eager to forgive God, a great choreographer, merciful, magic, gentle, laughs and dances, has a great sense of humor. Look who he's got trying to carry this message, right? Wants what's best for me and you, and he knows what it is. He wants to give us all sorts of gifts. He wants me to spend time with him. So it looks a whole lot like a relationship. I want a God that I can have a relationship with. I don't want to go to church and learn religion. I've got enough things to learn. I don't want to learn about rules and regulations. I want a relationship with God. I remember when I met my wife, her and I would sit on for hours on the phone, or we'd spend hours together getting to know each other. That's the kind of relationship I want with God. And he's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all day, all the time. And he lives right inside my heart. So that's the God of my understanding to this very day. Now, if I was to describe, if you were to ask me this morning, name God, one word, I would say it's comfort. And I'll tell you why shortly. So I got my list. He said, good. So you've taken the second step back to the meeting. I said, I have? He said, yeah, you've taken step 2. You've got a list. You've got a sponsor. You come to this meeting and it's Friday. They met 3 times a week, so I didn't want to ever miss the meeting. And so I've taken the second step. There's nothing else to do in step 2. I said, well, I don't understand God. He said, perfect. That's step 3. I said, I don't know anything about God, and I don't know anything about turning my will and my life over to God's care. He said, if you go away for a couple of days, what do you do with your dog? I said, well, I bring it to my neighbor. Yeah. And your neighbor takes care of it? I said, yeah. So you turn your dog over to the neighbor's care? I said, yeah. He said, that's all you do. You don't go off your holidays and run over to the neighbor and make sure they're doing it right. I said, no. He said, just get on with your day. Olaf, the only thing you got to know about God is that you're not it. So quit trying to manage and control everybody. Name some of the ways you try and play God. I manage my life and yours. I try and figure out the outcome. I know what's best for you and everybody else. Just ask me. I'm never wrong. I ask the question, why? Here's one for you. I get pissed off when somebody dies. That's management. When it's their time, it's their time. It's none of my business. I believe everything I know is correct. Some of the ways I trust my motives. Some of the ways I play God. The only thing I got to know about God is that I'm not it. And all I got to do is say the prayer with somebody. In the big book, there's a prayer, and mean it from the bottom of my heart, which I did. I did that night in the car with my sponsor. He said, Olaf, we're going to end this conversation right now by giving you an assignment. You go home and do that 4th and your 5th step and come back next week and tell us how it worked out for you. And they went on with the meeting. And then it was his turn to go around and tell him, how was your week really? And I sat there terrified. I now have an assignment. Don't talk back, do it right or not at all. Kicked into high gear. And I did what I was told. I came back the next Friday and I said, I'm done. I've done it. And they said, we knew. I said, how'd you know? He said, because that furrow in between your eyebrows is gone. And look at you, you're smiling, you got teeth. I would crunch my eyebrows together and I wouldn't look at you because I was so ashamed of myself. But I learned that I was dependent, I was controlling, I was a liar, I would cheat, I would steal, I'd manipulate. I learned a bunch of stuff about me. And I did my 5th step with my sponsor. And he told me some stuff about himself that blew my mind, which made my job so much easier because I thought I was the only one who did these rotten things. The other gift that I got from taking my 4th step was the gift of forgiveness. He had me go through my whole list of 181 names of all the people I was ever angry at. They're the ones I could remember. He said, make a list of all the people you were ever angry at, ever. And then just before that final column where it says to write down what you did, he had me forgive them all. I don't know how to forgive anybody. I don't know the first thing about forgiving. I was proud of my anger. I was proud of my hate. He said, no, you don't even get to talk bad about the people on your list, or none of this is going to take. What you need to do now is ask God to give you forgiveness. Your heart is prepared. God will give it to you if you mean it and if you ask. Ask God to give her beautiful waist size, the one she had when she was 22, that her hair stops falling out, turns the color that it was when she was young, and it just grows in and full and thick. Her breast size goes back and plump. She has an amazing sex life. We're talking about my ex-wife here, okay? Amazing sex life. Money grows out of trees. She never has to work again. The kids go to school on scholarship, and do it until you forgive her, until you mean it. And I was able to do that. I repeated that exercise with each and every person on my list, and I forgave them all. And I forgave myself after I did my 9th step. After my 9th step was complete, I'm completely free and forgiven. I've forgiven myself. How could I know any better while I was out there living that way? I couldn't be any better, living life to suit me and me only. I live by the motto of I want what I want when I want it, and I want it now. Get out of the way. Give it to me. I'm taking it. And when I have it, you're gone, and I don't care about you anymore. That's the way I lived. It's not that way now. These kids, the ones I told you I'd tell you about, well, my daughter proceeded to have 3 children. The oldest right now is 22. He's living with his girlfriend and her parents at their house, and they supply him marijuana. They let him stay home all day. He doesn't have to go to school. They have an autistic son, which he supposedly looks after, and he plays video games all day. He's been doing that for the last 3 years. Have a good time. He's our oldest grandson. The other 2, they're still little, well, 13 and 12. And we just spent the weekend with them a few weeks ago. My daughter and her boyfriend. My daughter, she lives outside in a tent. She's been doing that for the last 9 years. I remember early on when we found out this was happening, my present wife, who I've been married to for the last 21 years, Tracy and I drove downtown to find my daughter. It was Christmas Day. And we took her out for breakfast. And she's hooked on those drugs that you can't get off of. And her teeth are all gone. And I'm sitting there next to her. People are walking by giving us looks. I don't care about that. And I'm staring at her. I'm watching her eat. And I'm in tears. And I said, Stephanie, please come home with us. Please come home. We can give you a really good life. Just come home with us. And she looked at me with fire in her eyes and said, don't you ever come down here looking for me. Don't you ever, ever tell me to come home with you. There's nothing wrong with the way I'm living. Asking me to come home with you is like telling you to quit going to AA. See, she was 5 when I got sober, and she used to come with her brother with me to speaker meetings like this, where they would serve cake and we'd feed them cake on meeting night. And she knows all about us. She's been to tons of meetings. She really has. And that was the day I learned about hands off pays off. Mind my own business. Below my feet right now, below your feet, is a circle. It's a hula hoop. Inside this circle, there's only enough room for me. There ain't any room for you. Everything on the inside of your circle is your business. What you do inside your hula hoop is your business. There's no room in there for me or anybody else. You get to do whatever you want inside yours. I get to do whatever I want inside of mine. And that was the day I learned how to stay in my own hula hoop. I have never asked her that again. I was having lunch with a friend one day and I was telling him this story. And he says, so how are you going to manage the next time you go down there to see her? I said, well, I'm going to go down there with a different mindset, as if maybe treat her as if she's laying in the hospital with wires sticking out of her. I wouldn't dare dream of going into that emergency room, ICU, pull the wires out of her body and say, come on, get dressed, let's go home. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. And that did actually happen. I didn't pull the wires out. I sat with her and loved on her. She had C. difficile. It's a stomach intestine thing. She takes needles and she takes drugs, and she almost died that day a year ago. Since then, we've had lots of nice visits. I remember one time it was winter time. There was about 4 inches of snow on the ground, and she was outside in a tent in a little park. And somebody told me she was in there, and they all tell on each other down there. And I went to see, and I knocked on the tent, and I said, Stephanie, would you like to go for lunch? And she said, okay. And we went. We sat in the restaurant and we're listening to my phone, listening to her favorite music. And after that, we had the very best visit in the world, the best visit to date. And after our visit, I drove her back, and I want to walk her back to her tent. She said, Daddy, you don't have to walk me. I said, yeah, I do. I want to. And I walked her back to her tent gate, and she gave me a kiss right here. And gave her a big hug, told her I loved her, and I went on my way. And that's acceptance. Acceptance to the point where I wouldn't change it even if I could. I wouldn't change it. To this day, I wouldn't change it if I could. My prayer isn't, dear God, make her sober. Dear God, take her off drugs. That's not my prayer. That's management. Dear God, thank you for giving her sobriety whenever you see fit. I don't ask why. I just love on God and thank him. Thank him, thank him, thank him. My son, he had a lot of trouble growing up. He was in the children's services when he was little. I would visit him there. I had visiting rights, and I entertained my rights. I did my thing. I'm responsible, and I did my thing. I went to see him wherever the authorities sent him. Years later, he ended up with a family who were they spoke Spanish. They were a family. They did everything together as a family. I don't know anything about that. I wasn't raised that way, so that's foreign to me. I love that. I admire that. I think the world of that kind of thing. It's a nationality thing, right? Anyways, he went to live with a family that was very family oriented, and they loved on him. He taught soccer. He went to the Boy Scouts. He went to the cadets. He did so many really great things. He got honors in school. He did great. And then he met a girl and got her pregnant. And then he took off. He ran away and he got on drugs. And then from there, he went to jail. And he was out of jail, and then he'd go back and he'd go out. And then one day he had Oh boy, he's got 4 children. He's got one that he denied, and she's the only girl. And then he's got 3 other ones, 3 boys. And oh boy, he came home really wasted one morning, actually, at 6 o'clock. His girlfriend was on the phone with somebody. Some guy just left the house. And of course, my son started thinking. He pulled a gun out of his pocket and he pointed it at her face and he pulled the trigger and the bullet didn't come out. He went to prison for 6 years for doing that. She was on the phone talking to her mother while all of this happened. And she's looking after the boys. All is well. We were there last weekend. Great kids. The oldest is 12, and he went to prison for 6 years, maximum security prison. While he was there, him and I would read the big book together. We would read from the stories. We would read every Sunday morning at 8 o'clock until 9 o'clock every day. Every Sunday. And I was so hopeful that he would come and join us. But, just because they sit in a chair in an AA meeting don't mean they're gonna surrender, trust God, clean house, and help others. Doesn't mean that. So he showed up to 2 meetings and didn't go back, but he did go back to jail 2 more times. And on the 3rd time, his new girlfriend decided to marry him. She managed that, controlled it all, got it paid for, everything. And I was there. I saw it. I took him out to buy a suit. I got to do that. He would buy me the nicest Father's Day cards. So honored. And so I got to be the dad that I always wanted to have. He married her, and I thought, okay, well, I can be hopeful, right? And that was in November. And in February, there was a pounding on the door. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. I woke up. I was scared as heck. I thought, what on earth? Who the heck? What's going on? I ran to the door. I opened it up. It was dark outside. I said, who are you and what do you want? She said, it's me, Jennifer, Justin's wife. I said, don't tell me he's back in jail. She said, no, he's dead. I said, he's what? He's dead. We just came back from the morgue. Jennifer, his wife, and her father drove 4 hours down to the city. They live up north on the reserve. They drove down. They visited him in the morgue. The hospital called him and said he's dead. He had something around his heart. So the needles, dirty needles, killed him. And I fell to my knees. I was devastated. I said, oh my God, now what? Now what? I've never had a family member or anybody that close to me die before. I don't know how to live. I don't know how to handle that. I don't know the first thing about dealing with that. And they came into the house. We talked, we reminisced, looked at photo albums. We looked at the pictures we just took last weekend. We went tubing, snow tubing. The bunch of us went, all the grandkids, everybody. He came with us. We had the best time. The week before that, it was his birthday. He turned 32. We celebrated birthday, chocolate cake, we had the best time. We took pictures and videos. It was great. That just happened. And here he is dead. And all I kept saying to God was, now what? What am I supposed to do with this? Everybody finally left, and my wife came up to me and we were in tears, just in tears. He loved her so much. And Tracy said to me, she says, what are we going to do today? I said, I don't know. She said, well, we're supposed to go back up north snow tubing and snowshoeing. We've had it planned for weeks to go to the bed and breakfast for the weekend. And this was the weekend. She said, I guess we should call and cancel. I said, wait a minute, what? Cancel? She said, yeah. I said, and then what? She said, I don't know. I said, wait a minute. What would we be doing if this didn't happen? We'd be going snowshoeing. Let's do it. And we went. Not to stay home and cry and moan and sit around and do nothing. I really like having fun, okay? Fun is, I thrive off it. I'm sober for a reason, to live my life to its fullest. He had his chance. He could have come home come with us and stayed sober. He chose not to. His addiction took him away from that choice. I'm sad about it. I'm really sad about it. But hey, he never mentioned it to me one time. He never told me he was doing that. I didn't know he was taking needles. I said, let's go snowshoeing. And on our way up north, I'm almost done. On our way up north, I kept saying to God out loud, what are we supposed to do with this? What now? What am I supposed to do with this? And I got an answer. And the answer is, it's the password. What? It's like God and I are having this dialogue. The password. Oh, I remember listening to a speaker one time, the password. Do you know the we all have passwords on our phones, our computers, our bank accounts. Everything's got a password. Well, the password to our higher power is thank you. In all things, give thanks. In all things, give thanks. No matter what, give thanks. He can take my mess and make a message out of it and help somebody with it. He's done that. He's taken your mess and made a message out of it. You've helped somebody with your past, with the messiest situation that you've ever lived through. You've helped somebody with it. And the password, in all things, give thanks. And I thought, I said out loud, I'm not thankful. Tracy said, what are you talking about? I said, I'm not thankful that he's dead. No, Olaf, you got to be a dad for 32 years to a boy who was troubled, who didn't always let you be his dad. You got to be his dad to a 32-year-old who was a drug addict, an alcoholic who went to prison, and you got to sit with him on the phone. I got to take the third step prayer over the glass. I got to be his dad. When he let me, we got to photograph together. We got to do a lot of things together. I'm thankful I had that opportunity. I don't have it today, but I can share those stories with everybody and anyone. I got to be a dad. And so a week later, my sponsor phoned me up and said, meet me at the airport. I said, why? He said, don't ask that question. Why? He said, because I'm visiting you. I'm coming to visit you. I'm staying for 3 days. I said, what do you mean? He says, I'm coming to visit you. Olaf, you can pretend to care, but you can't pretend to show up. So my sponsor, who lives in the United States, flew to Toronto, and we spent 3 days together and had the best time ever. 2 weeks later, we ended up at a men's retreat in Florida. What a treat. Florida in the summertime, Florida in the wintertime, in the dead of winter, when it's nasty and miserable here. I got to go to Florida, where I got to go to the men's retreat, and that's where I wrote the letter. My sponsor sat me down, and we wrote a letter to my son. I wrote the letter. And every time I started crying, he said, put the pen down and let the tears flow. Don't hold them back. Just let them flow. This exercise is more about the tears than it is about the writing. And I wrote and I wrote and I cried and I cried and I wrote and I cried. And when I finished, he said, what about his kids? And then I cried and wrote and cried some more. And after we were done, I took the letter and we walked out on this great big dock. And he said, okay, we're going to say a prayer. And when you're done, say amen. And I did. He gave me a lighter. He says, now light the letter up. Let the smoke go up to heaven. And let the ashes go into the ocean. And then go have a nap. And I did that. I'm free. The last Father's Day card he gave me is a gift. You know, I did such a great job. I still write God letters. It's part of my second step. I don't know about you. You may have heard about the God box, the God can. That's what it started with for me. But today it's an outcomes jar. I'm so concerned about the outcomes all the time, trying to figure out the future. I write God my letter. Dear God, here's my concerns. Please help me. And I pray it out loud and I stick it in a jar. It's been a while that I've had to add one in here because prayer just usually works. But every now and again, I write him a letter. And then I thank God for the opportunity to be a dad. My daughter won't let me be a dad. She doesn't want to talk to us, and that's okay. I get it. She's taking drugs. She's doing her deal, man. She's doing her thing. Acceptance is freedom. It does not include approval. Acceptance does not include approve. I don't have to approve to accept, but accept I must so that I can live comfortable. This program has given me a new life, and it continues to give me a new life. I love my life. I don't think God's got any grandkids. Each and every one of us are brothers and sisters, and our last name is God. You know, just before I finish, I want to tell you something. You know why? Is there traffic where you live? Do you guys get traffic on rush hour and stuff? You know why there's traffic? You know why they drive so slow in traffic? Because they left on time. Now, I'm just saying, they left on time. I'm in a hurry. I'm honking, trying to get around all the. Stop, stop, stop. My driving assignment is to put on one of these, honk the horn, and wave. And when somebody smiles, mission accomplished. And since we're not going anywhere, we can blow some of these, get out of the car and give them away. And when someone smiles, mission accomplished. I have just spread love and joy, which is my #1 current assignment, is to spread love and joy. I hope I've done that for you today. Thank you so much for having me. This has been an honor. It's really nice to be here.
Olaf, that was unbelievable. No, it wasn't unbelievable. I loved your story. The end of it was heartbreaking. And I came into Alcoholics Anonymous warped with guilt, shame, and remorse. I hated me. I hated everything about me. And thanks to this program, I've learned how to be a son to my parents. I learned how to be a husband to my wife. And I learned how to be a father to my kids. And I got so much identification from you. 3 of my children have come into the fellowship and gone back out. My daughter came back to the fellowship after 17 years. And she's clean and sober today. And I'm grateful for that. Because I disappointed my own parents, but I got the opportunity to make amends. I just love this program. And I know you thought you were speaking last week, but I'm glad you didn't speak last week because this week was the week for it. I come to Alcoholics Anonymous to get identification. And your drinking story is be a lot like mine. But your sober story is a lot like mine as well. And I love the fact you got the opportunity to be a dad. That you have that regardless. I go away tonight with a warm feeling in my heart. Not only have I got a speaker here today, I think I've got a friend for the rest of my life. I love what Alcoholics Anonymous has done for me. You know, it's brought people in love into my life. I love being sober. I have a sense of humour. If you get it, you'll love me. If you don't, you'll have to pray for me. That's it from me. Kathleen.
Yes.
Have you anything to say?
My name is Kathleen and I'm an alcoholic. I'm a daughter of an alcoholic, but I've never seen him drink. And I'm 19 months sober in 3 days. Thank you very much. Thanks, Bruce, for remembering. Your share was amazing. I've loads written down, but I'm not going to share on all of it. Stop managing and stop controlling. I want to control all my kids. I've got 4 daughters. I want to be able to control everything for them so that they don't make mistakes. Bye, Roseanne. So that they don't make mistakes, because I don't want them to make the mistakes that I made. But I've learned to hand that over when they go on a night out, because I want them to make the mistakes and I want them to experience it and I want them to learn from it. And I found that extremely difficult when I came back into the program 19 months ago and 3 days. But I'm able to do that now. And when they do come home and they say, I done this, I've done that, this happened, that happened. I said, what are you going to learn from it? I don't know. Is he going to do it again? Yeah, probably. And I says, well, I says, that's up to you to do it. They have to make the mistake. And all I can do is advise them. That's what was given to me, was advice. And I'll advise them and I'll say whether it's right or wrong. They're not going to listen because they don't listen. They think it's funny to come into me and say, well, I tried snuffs and I tried this and I tried that. All right, okay. Sobriety sucks, you said. And I laughed at that when you said that. My first 12 months, I used to say, this is a tin of piss. Why didn't I do this 17 years ago? But the last 7 months and 3 days haven't been a tin of piss because I've struggled with it. I found it extremely difficult. I'm very honest about it. I put my hands up and I say, I don't think I can do this today. But I'm still doing it. And I'm admitting it's difficult. And under any and all conditions, I don't want to lose my sobriety this time. I'm sorry for the loss of your son. Today is the anniversary, the 10-year anniversary of a baby I lost. And I spent 8 years drinking on that because I was entitled to drink on it, because I lost that baby and this was my loss. And I'm going to drink on it and I didn't care what anybody else thought. Last year I was sober for that anniversary and I isolated from everybody. Didn't talk to my sponsor. Coming up to that weekend, I used to always say to my parents, don't ring me, I don't want to talk to anybody. I done that last year. I didn't want anyone to come to the house. This weekend, I didn't do that. I done a chair on a meeting with 103 people on it yesterday. And I shared about it. And I didn't get off the meeting and I didn't go and drink and I had no intention of drinking. Today is that baby's anniversary. I done a chair at a live meeting and I shared about it and I spoke with a woman afterwards about it. And I'm doing it again tonight. And I'm not going to drink or use. And that's okay because I'm dealing with it now. I'm not trying to cover it up. And when you give out about people laughing in the job and they were too jolly and too happy, I go into work every morning and it doesn't matter if I'm in bad form. It doesn't matter if my kids have upset me. I still walk in that door and I shout at the top of my voice, good morning, morning. Everyone's like, will you stop? It's too fucking loud, Kathleen. Will you stop, calm down. And I was asked, I was spoke with a fella at 6:10 in the morning, I think it was a Tuesday or Wednesday morning. He said, how in God's name are you so fucking enthusiastic at that hour of the morning? And I said, do you really want to know why? Because I said, I was so sad, I was so miserable, and I was so lost for so many years that I couldn't do that. Now I can. And that's why every morning, even if things are bad, I still do it. Even if I don't want to, I can be in the bed saying, oh, not another fucking day of this. But then I say, it could be the other way, couldn't it? And it's not. So get up, wreck people's head by being happy, say hello, just traumatize people with happiness, because that makes me feel a little bit better. But I do it with good intent, not badness. And then I like to tell people, well, do you really want to know what it was like? That made me laugh then. And then you blew the bubbles. And then you put on the nose. Because you can be happy today, even if things are bad, because it's not going to be the way it was. Yeah. Thanks for that, everybody. And thanks, Olaf. I did enjoy that. We've come to the end of the meeting and Peter is going to read the promises. Please.
How you doing, guys? Peter, alcoholic addict. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret our past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. A whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realise that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They have been fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, and will always materialise if we work for them.
Thanks, Peter, and thanks, Robin, for doing the readings. Thanks, Karen, for doing timekeeping. Thank Kathleen for doing the hosting with me. And that's it, except to thank Olaf as well for a fantastic meeting. And Kathleen?
Reminder that our meeting are on 7 days per week at 8:30 a.m. UK time. We also have a lunchtime meeting every Sunday at 1 p.m. UK time. This is a step 11 meditation meeting.
And on Saturdays, we have at 6 p.m. we have our old timers meeting, an extended chair recorder for our archives. On Thursday evening, we have a meeting at 7:30 p.m. UK time. We use the same meeting code for all our meetings.
Please stick around for fellowship after the meeting. If you want to use a breakout room after this meeting, please let the host know.
And the yellow card. Who you see here?
What you hear here,
When you leave here.
please let it stay here.
And all we have to do now is get Olaf to wrap it up with the serenity prayer or the serenity prayer. And Olaf, again, thanks so much for joining us. An amazing share. The message is going to carry on forevermore with this recording, that I can guarantee you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Just reminded of a story of the hummingbird and the buzzard. They're both flying over the same field. The hummingbird is looking for something beautiful, sweet, and alive. And the buzzard is looking for something old, dead, and stinky. They both flying over the same field. They both find what they're looking for. Choose to be a hummingbird. Close the meeting with the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity.
Accept the things I cannot change.
Courage
to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Please stay.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening.
Have fun.